So moving on to another show that all the episodes will eventually be online. As Luke mentioned at the start, a BBC Three sitcom mockumentary, This Country, starring and written by Charlie and Daisy May Cooper, brother and sister, play Curtan and Kerry Mucklow.
Well, no, it's Curtin. It's Curtin, like curtains in your house.
Yeah.
And because he's got that Gareth from The Office haircut.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie Cooper, he does look a lot like Mackenzie Crook when he was in The Office.
He's an awful look. It could almost be his twin.
Basically, this is a mockumentary that sort of follows them around in their day-to-day. They're both sort of would you say they're outcasts in the village?
Yes, although you can't really be an outcast. Then there's more people in that village that are probably more outcast-worthy.
I mean, there's not a lot of plot to it. The first episode followed like at the Scarecrow Festival where Curtin he was determined to win it that year. Things went against him without trying to ruin some of the jokes.
Yes.
Probably my favourite bit of the first episode was Carrie getting her house plumbed.
They plumbed the sofa, they plumbed the living room, plumbed the windows.
I can't believe it. All over this. Plumbing on here, plumbing on that. Plumb the sofa, look. There's nothing left that hasn't been plumbed. Oh my gosh. I knew this would happen. Can you see what it's like to be me now? I've had a target on my back since the day I was born.
The second episode, which I preferred, I wonder why you got me to watch the first.
That's why I wanted you to see it.
Yeah,
I'm glad you watched it.
Curtin was trying to track down an old classmate that only sort of he remembers, Robert Robinson.
Yeah.
Kerry was hesitant about getting a tattoo from what was her name? Debbie, was it? Big Debbie.
Or Linda or something like that. Yeah.
I think you liked it maybe because it reminded you of the early days of The Office, the way they filmed it, where obviously Charlie Cooper's looking like Mackenzie Crook.
Yeah.
The sort of camera interviews were very similar.
I also like that. I don't know much. I know nothing about them, not even their names, as it turns out. But I think that
that helps.
They must be of our generation because there were a lot of references to things our generation.
I'm sure I saw an article somewhere, and it may have been on Digital Spy or another site like a BuzzFeed, about what happened to the cast of The Queen's Nose.
And the fuse bar thing, which was a cabbage that
this was in the second episode.
With it.
They were talking about how Curtin was obsessed with tracking down this classmate, and Kerry was saying like he was obsessed with finding out what happened to all the members of the cast of The Queen's Nose. Turns out a lot of them are still acting, and before that was whatever happened to the fuse bar.
And they just said sales weren't that great.
I think a lot of the comedy comes from delivery of some of these lines, like the plumbing and stuff like that. Yeah. And I think, as you said, and we mentioned with the Moore side, it helps that you don't know these actors very well.
I've never, but I feel like this is why I think BBC Three is a massive failure, because we're lucky that we can preview things before we see them. So Matt quite rightly said he saw this come up on the preview site.
I thought it was
like him, I had no idea what it was. BBC Three have given it no promotion anywhere.
I like as well the fact that everything in that, as you said, like the fuse bar and stuff like that, everything's a bit old fashioned. And
there's Noel Edmonds. Noel's house party joke.
Well, they were saying like, you've got to eye on because you're reminiscing about Noel's house party. You're missing out on Alan Carr Chatty, man.
Yeah, and the first joke
what I was going to say was the fact that Kerry's always wearing a 442 football magazine shirt. That I think is a publication that no longer exists.
The first joke that I thought, yes, I'm going to like this, was one about Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen.
Yeah.
Over there, we saw Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen once in the shop, and once up Burley Hill riding his bike, didn't we?
And in the co-op.
Yeah.
Because I was walking in the co-op, and he was coming out, and I said, after you. And he said, no, after you. He's so humble.
So humble. And I said to him, when do we get to see you back on our screens? Because it's a crying shame I don't get to see you as often. And he just shrugged.
He just shrugged like that. Such a shame.
One thing I would say, and now will make me sound a bit old and fuddy-duddy like you did before, was that I just felt there was a little bit too much swearing. They used the F word a little bit too much for me. I don't think it needed it because the jokes were that funny. It worked in the first episode when you had the vicar telling him not to keep swearing and stuff like that, but it worked less well I thought in the second episode where there was just a lot of swearing without any context to it, really.
Well, I've known Kerry and Curtin on and off for 12 years now. I think they're great kids, really. I do think they sometimes resort to a lot of effing and jeffing, and that's something we've been working on actively a lot, especially the last couple of years. And I feel like they've made great strides forward. I mean, last week, I don't think they used the F word once. We had the C word a couple of times, but I mean, that really is an improvement on what had gone before.
Yeah, I agree. It's a shame. It didn't distract from it, but it means that I can't share this with sort of older people that might enjoy it. No, but just
I know what you mean. Yeah.
I loved all the bits like when they're chatting to the vicar and they're like, he loves Midsummer Murders. He never misses an episode of Midsummer Murders, and there's so much good references that made me laugh so much.
I remember, I'm sounding like my grandma now, because she always went on about how much she liked Billy Connolly, but she couldn't stand him always swearing in his stand-up sets.
I just don't think it was necessary. It didn't add anything. We knew who these people were. I suppose we're all fuddy duddies. I spoke about Shameless earlier, which was a show I loved that was full of language like that. So really, maybe it shouldn't bother me, but it still does. And especially if it's not necessary.
No offence is full of language, but you don't tend to notice it. It doesn't stick out much, does it? It doesn't. I don't think if it works. I
suppose in comedy, I suppose we're more aware of it because comedy is there to make you laugh, and so if you're not and often people will say, "Oh, swearing makes a joke funnier," and I've never believed that. I don't think
it did.
I've never.
In this case, but I would say, I definitely enjoyed it, and the second episode sort of wheeled me in a little bit more to it, and it is again, it's an easy watch. It's only 24 minutes.
It's like 24, 23 minutes. Yeah. They're going to show this on BBC One, I believe, at like 5 to midnight on a Saturday. So make sure you watch it.
Yeah, because they said, when BBC Three went online, when they announced the proposal, it's like all the big news shows, they're all going to get a debut on BBC One or BBC Two. We're going to show them somewhere. Yeah, at a time when no one's watching flipping TV.